Here we are. Yes, okay. Welcome back to the grand finals of the Beyond All Reason 1v1 championships. These two commanders have fought to a standstill. But they'll do anything but stand still in Game 5, the decider of the grand finals. Let me introduce to you once again, from Thailand, it is Teddy, with the Armada Commander in the blue. And in the top left, opting for Cortex. For one of the first times, we see a split between the two. Two different factions. The British player, MightySheep, also choosing a different starting position. But, to reintroduce you, this is Beyond All Reason, the spiritual and legally distinct successor to Total Annihilation. Very similar in inspiration and origins to Supreme Commander and another game called 0K, but is open source and open to play. And if you check out by liking and subscribing the description, if you use my promo code, you can follow the link, and the first 100 people will be able to download Beyond All Reason for absolutely free. Now, everyone past that will also be able to download it for absolutely free, but they're not going to be as special. So, and for legal and slightly confusing reasons, or potentially confusing there is no promo code. That was that was a bit. Okay, Jimmy says I have to say that because people get confused sometimes, and I say then they shouldn't play strategy games. They should just make dumb comments on YouTube. And then Jimmy says I shouldn't say that because I'm alienating most of my demographic, to which I agree. So I will stop that and start describing Beyond All Reason, which is a hunter-gatherer survival simulator. You hunt enemy units and commanders. You gather metal and energy from metal extractors, and from solar panels, wind turbines, and from trees. And also, one of the most efficient ways to hunt is to destroy your enemy units and gather from them with the reclaim function, which is one of the coolest parts of the game, one of the most relevant in deciding especially these 1 versus 1 battles. But starting off, Cortex is the choice for MightySheep. Cortex has access to grunts, which are they have longer range than the tier 1 bot infantry of Armada. In general, very, very roughly, the factions are very equivalent. They have access to very similar buildings, similar costs, similar units. The biggest splits are a little later on in higher tech units, but they all have units for both ground, air, whatever roles. But very generally, Armada is a little faster, higher DPS, less HP. Cortex, more range, HP, damage, but not quite as maneuverable. And that is, I would compare them, the difference is a little more like the difference between Age of Empires civilizations as opposed to StarCraft races. In fact, it's more like playing the Rainer versus the Swan co-op commander. Is probably the most accurate comparison. But in 1v1, we already see metal extractors being taken. We haven't looked much at Teddy's base, but Teddy has chosen to go for the vehicle plant, which gives you access, obviously, to vehicles, whereas the bot lab for MightySheep. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing all the tier 1 tech. As much like in StarCraft 2 and mirror matchups, you can't tech up too fast. Otherwise, you leave yourself open to just outright getting attacked and dying. You simply don't have the resources to go to tier 2. You don't have nearly enough metal. So. And another key point is the simply the space on the map, where this map is oftentimes used for like 4v4 or larger team games. It was the choice of MightySheep after losing the previous game to tie up the series to Teddy. So a lot of space. And he chose his starting position from a variety in the back corner, which indicates he wants as much space as possible to try to outmaneuver and out-macro his opponent. So far, I would say Teddy is a bit more focused on the tactics, finding the right unit or the right timing, whereas Sheep wants to survive until he gets an overwhelming army that just hits too many places to be stopped. Now, that is once again, much like the faction breakdown, the very oversimplified, but here we are. And we've had the early game exchanges. Both sides are going to be sending out units, whether it's grunts or, in this case, blitzes, the tanks for Armada, in order to try to limit some of the more greedy metal extractors, which those early constructors are making their way out. We're going to go to the sheep cam for a moment, the mightiest of sheeps, and take a look what he's focusing on. You might wonder, are the players also looking at these tiny, looking from all the way out here? Yep, you can zoom out to see the entire map, and you probably should, otherwise you might miss something. And especially on a map of this magnitude. Advanced solar collectors being added on. Reclaiming some of the trees with those reclaim bots as well. Another advantage of going for bots early. In fact, Sheep, we got to turn this off. Sheep managed to get some grunts all the way into Teddy's base. I gotta remind you at this point, the way to win is to destroy your opponent's commander. That's it. That's the entire objective. If for some reason that commander's in the wrong spot at the wrong time, the game ends. There's no trying to kill every single one of those last buildings. There's no hunting down in the corner. I mean, unless that's where they put their commander. Very simply, if the commander dies, there's no one left. So, we'll see how long that takes. Oh, the commander has many means of defending themselves. Strong words. And a disintegration gun that one-shots every unit in the game if it hits it, including juggernauts, which are pretty much exactly what they sound like. Which he unleashed there in order to kill some of those tanks that strayed a little too close. A single, Grunticus, the first, maybe not the last, has already leveled up. You see the little stars. Units gain veterancy, essentially, on doing damage, which usually just adds a marginal amount of HP, maybe a slight attack rate increase. It's not like they get big abilities or anything, but and can help you maybe survive and take a better fight later on. Though, grunts are not the most long-term unit, believe it or not. Ah yes, thank you observers for explaining to us how shapes work. Poorly. This is my response. The grunt, oh my god. 5 going on 6 metal extractors in the sand pit. Clearly Teddy hates sand. Tanks, not great in sand. It's coarse. It's irritating. You have to go down a ramp, up a ramp, slows down your vehicles. Unfortunately for him, about half the map is sand, or at least a bunch of the key points. The center sand trap here. Mostly passable by ground, but not something you necessarily want to get stuck in. Now, a big part of why the grunts can be so dangerous, even to vehicles, is flanking damage. When a unit gets hit, what is that noise? Oh, that's the sound of a metal extractor finishing. I'm just not used to hearing that sound effect so much. Oh my god. Because usually you're not getting like 20 metal extractors. as everything has a sound effect, and a lot of the attack sounds and buildings are distinct as well. I have different sorts of attack profiles and whether they can hit or they have damage drop-off like lasers at range. Here we go. Two armies kind of not even realizing they were near each other until they start firing. Most units can attack while moving, though not all can attack in all directions. Especially like artillery tanks must be facing the correct direction. Anyways, flanking damage. When you get hit from one side, you become vulnerable to a flank on the opposite side, which is what these ticks are trying to activate. But that means you take up to double damage depending on the angle from the opposite side. And that allows you to really drive the point home with superior numbers and/or superior position. But here we are. Lines drawn in the sand. As so far, neither player has been able to take a distinct advantage in the early game. Overall, MightySheep has significantly more energy. Yes. Oh my god, is this the same grunt? He's trying to shoot at the radar, but there's a slight incline, which he's now realizing, of this wreck being in the way, which can technically be destroyed, but takes a while, as we see there. Terrain very much matters, whether it's for accuracy, damage drop-off, or just literally getting in the way. But here we go. Shurikens in the center of the map. The Cortex Flyer. EMP to stun some of the units. Very temporarily, but very temporarily is enough for him to close the distance and potentially shut things down here. Yeah, just a few shurikens when there's very little anti-air can turn the tide of a close battle. Well, the blitzes are trying to make their way through. The grunts backing off. A lot of the Cortex tanks being run down by the close-range DP. They essentially strap a submachine gun on top of them, as do many Armada-style things. All about getting in range to get the damage done and moving past it. They're called blitzes, all right? And that's exactly what they've done here. The shurikens, not enough to stop them. Small tank run by, drive by. Meanwhile, the lines are getting pretty blurred as Teddy takes the center of the map, but both players are working around the edges. Again, another attack is making its way down into the back sand pit. Gonna take out some of those metal extractors, but at the same time, Teddy might be able to do the same to MightySheep on the back line. A whole bunch of metal. Is he reclaiming? He's actually resurrecting the tanks, which only costs energy, so you save yourself the energy cost of making a new tank or grunt or whatever. You can resurrect. In fact, many times I've seen. Now, an interesting interaction, which is hard for me to slip in the commentary, is because they're different factions, if one of them resurrects a construction bot or a constructor of some kind, they can build the units. They can build a production facility and potentially build units of another faction. This is much more relevant in team games with players sharing units and being different factions, but it is a possibility here. And of course, you can resurrect units of the enemy faction and have them fight for you, but that's less dramatic than being able to build them yourself. Alright, so Sheep has some res bots behind. I feel like I need to just go to this mode. Much of the northern flank has been cleared out, but at the same time, Sheep has dealt with the right side of the map is a no man's land at this point. The grunts and light tanks making their way by. Some of the turrets no match for this many tanks, at least unless the shurikens get involved. Fighter aircraft coming in to wipe the shurikens out of the sky. Technically, the turrets will fire at them. They're just not great at it. Shurikens stalling out the ticks that are trying to help reinforce this counterattack. I think it only takes one shuriken hit. The tick's the smallest or the cheapest combat unit in the game. Often spammed. Oh my god, Grunticus Maximus. I've never seen this rank on a unit. He's got plus 65%. I think that's like rank 6 or so. Oh, anyways. He's got a star! Gotta go res that one. I think you keep your experience, I'm not sure. Anyways, another battle. On the sand trap. Meanwhile, the tank battles overall seem to be won by Teddy. The fighters are still over the top. A lot of metal being reclaimed. Still a handful of light tanks on the backline. The incisors here from MightySheep have been slowing it down. Teddy, with all the metal he's getting from the field, is gaining a lot. It's hard to tell. Metal produced. Wow, Sheep is at 7,000 more. And how much energy? I did not realize how much more control he had over the situation. He may even be going to tier 2 right now. That 2,900 metal investment is a huge step up. I'd compare it to going like from Hatch Tech to Hive, or building like 3 or 4 more command centers and barracks before anything else. But it gives you access to the advanced construction bots, which can build dramatic defenses, but more importantly, advanced metal extractors, which are 4 times as strong, and your greatest source of income until you get exponentially scaling fusion energy. So, a huge boost in the mid-game, even in 1v1, where it's so hard. Well, maybe especially in 1v1, where it's so hard to keep anything alive. Speaking of, it does, when you go for tier 2, unless you're already winning incredibly hard, it's inevitable you'll lose some unit production. And Teddy, I think, has taken advantage of that. Teddy has now got tier 2 himself, and he's claimed much of the center of the map and has rebuilt over to the bottom right corner. Overall, Sheep is a little more tucked in. His base is consolidated back here. He hasn't started any, will he get a transport vehicle for his, or an air transport for his? Because obviously the construction bot is not the quickest creature. Sometimes players will use air transports to move them around a little quicker, though slightly risky. Tank line drawn. Looks like Sheep might punch through. Isolated some of the units. Still a whole bunch of wrecks on the field. Not enough to bottle things up yet. The ticks. There were shurikens up here, but shurikens don't actually kill anything. They just hold it there until hopefully somebody comes by and helps. Well, there should be enough blitzes here. A bit of an optimistic battle out of Sheep, but he's regained much of the high ground. Overall, well, Sheep has a significant lead, and we may actually see a fusion reactor moment. I'm starting to learn this game, I think. As he's now got over 1,000 energy with all these advanced solars. He's got a whole bunch of advanced metal extractors. He's claiming a lot of these wrecks. And with that sort of income, the next way to scale is, instead of harnessing the wind or the sun, just create a little bit of your own. The fusion reactor, incredibly expensive, but produces 1,000 energy. So essentially, about as much energy as everything else on the screen. All but maybe a few of the advanced solar collectors combined. Okay, more like that much of this. Still, it's very good. It's not the most efficient necessarily, though the wind speed is not high enough for the wind turbines. It's very good, and he has a lot of metal. It is how you get essentially to a late game economy, because you can only build, there's only so much space for wind turbines or solar panels. It literally becomes a real estate issue. A real estate you can protect issue. There's a lot of map, but as we've seen, keeping a strong hold on it. And if you lose the fusion reactor. Well, it's not good for anything around it. Let's put it that way. Sheep is setting up minefields. Whoa, the commander! Okay, well, he's got the DK. He's paying attention. If, what an anticlimactic end that could be. The mines, it looks like they obliterated most of the Jaguar tanks trying to make their way through. Of course, the mines don't recharge to fire again. That once they're gone, they're gone. Wouldn't it be silly if in an RTS a mine just automatically recharged? Like, especially something like this you could just lay down pretty cheaply. That'd be ridiculous. I don't know who he's talking to. That's the spectators, I guess. But an advanced geothermal plant from Teddy, which is the most efficient possible power, plus 1250, so even more than the fusion reactor for a fraction of the cost. The only downside is, if it explodes, it's bad for everything in the entire zip code. But of course, Teddy, it's kind of on its own. It's not right next to his base, so it should be okay for now. Well, things have slowed down a bit as both sides have reached the economic level that they're both able to put enough on the field to both scout and defend run-bys. Though overall, well, MightySheep has done, he's gotten a lot more of his advanced metal extractors up. Which means his metal income is outstripping that of Teddy at the moment, despite Teddy probably having a few more metal extractors overall, but the advanced ones are clearly... Yeah, this is +8 compared to +2. 8, and now this is true, is more than 2. Now, the mines can be cleared up with detectors, I believe, by just running over them with plenty of units, or with a Juno missile launcher, which is probably the most common way of doing it, and I wouldn't be surprised to see, which creates Juno missiles, which can disable radar and radar jammers, which are much more relevant in, well, I have seen very rare Junos in 1v1, but this game is already the highest economy I've seen of the entire turn. We actually... I dare not whisper it. We may have a chance at seeing a Juggernaut or a Titan. Tier 3 or a Thor. It's on the table as we are barreling towards the exponential economy scaling. Ooh. Did he see it? I mean, is there anything to see? Or nukes? I mean... He saw the reactors. He knows. He's building some of his own, I'm sure. There's the Armada reactor. Ah! Well, we can see the reaction here. Citadel anti-nuke interceptor. If a nuke is launched anywhere within quite a wide range of this thing, well then, it will fire an interceptor missile to deal with it. Quite reliable and much cheaper than the nukes themselves. But if it's taken out or the nuke is fired at a different part of the map, well, he didn't see the whole base though. He just saw a fusion reactor, and he knows that MightySheep has been turtling up. So he clearly is anticipating some dramatic plays. And honestly, anti-nuke is pretty cheap, especially. Better safe than sorry. Well, some bull tanks. Probably the Armada's strongest tier 2 tank here. Pretty quick for what it is. Very tanky. Really embodies the whole tank feel. Honestly, the most directly obvious unit in the game At least on the field right now. Those are clearly tanks. They work like tanks, as you can see. Now the minefield. The minefield, I think, was cleared up. Whoop, he gets hit by one. The bull tanks are just running through the field. Beams are trying to match them. But these, they're just pounding through. Their counter to the mines is running them over and just eating the damage. He's clearing paths in the minefield. Surprisingly effectively. Now he's got to be careful he doesn't end up getting his own tanks turned against him too dramatically. It's happening! Experimental gantry! Doesn't really have a nice ring to it, does it? The Super Tech Plant, which builds your tier 3 units here, which aren't necessarily stronger than tier 2 units, but I mean, some of them definitely are. But he's building the Shiva Siege Mech, which has a long-range launcher and is generally a good, like, upgraded midline unit. I don't have too much experience with anything but the biggest guns, but of course also here is the exponential scaling has begun. The Juggernaut and the Behemoth are options as well. Is that an advanced armed metal extractor? The bull tanks are trying to blast their way through, but the shurikens are locking them down. They might end up being reclaimed while still alive. Meanwhile, the fiends are trying to sneak along the right side. They cleared up some of these metal extractors. It looks like they will eventually be dealt with by the Jaguars. A fighter screen. I don't know how many fighters are we looking at? That's not the right. Well, that's also not right. A lot of fighters. Wait, I know the button. 80. And I think he's continually adding them. Oh, and the bull tanks now. At some point, Juno missile comes in. But at this point, he's just handing him Armada tanks. As the tanks rallied across, stunned, taken out, and then resurrected to fight for the Cortex. So overall, Teddy... Wait, what do you got here, Teddy? He's got 2 Juno launchers. He's now building... What is that? Oh, wow. The Starlights. The long-range mobile turret. You'll know it when you see it. One of the cooler units in the game. It definitely has the sci-fi feel to it. Juno launcher. Clearing out that minefield and disabling any radar nearby. He's still trying to hold on to it. The Jaguar tanks dealing with the battery here. But the Bulls are leading the charge, appropriately enough, back against their former creators. The Shivas are just rallying across the map as well out of the gantry, as the final game of the finals, becoming by far the most dramatic. Atomic Bomber, but the fighters close in like wasps. Wait, are they called wasps? No, I don't think so. Valiants. All right, not nearly as cool. Actually, I think there are some more aircraft that are named along those lines, actually. But Shuriken Hercules, that's not really the Finch. Oh, there's the Starlight. I don't know if there's enough frontline to deal with this, though. It does cost energy for every shot. Both sides have a huge amount of energy to draw on, but they're starting to really use it, both in unit production and in some of their weaponry. Oh, the Pulsar Cannon. The ultimate in conventional defense. The longest range tier 2 defense on that left flank should be able to shut down all but the most concerted attacks. The Starlight getting kind of stuck in the middle of the field here. The Shiva rocket's landing. It could move out of him. Losing it pretty quickly. Adding in some of the crab walkers. I mean Karganaths. Which, don't care about your silly ground paths because, well, I think that demonstrated better than I could ever describe it. Anyways. More Starlights at the front, but there's not that much tankiness here. There's not that much to mask with them. They're gonna have to be target fired because a whole lot of tier 1 units essentially drawing fire from some of these heavier weapons. Drawing those shots out. The grunts and so... Oh, atomic bomber comes in. Where are the fighters? Many of them got taken out. Some flak is being added on as well. The fighters trying to hunt down the atomic bomber, but it's already gone. Shiva's clearing out the front, but over on the right side, a couple gunships will draw the attention of many of the fighters. That might open up another opportunity for the atomic bomber to move in. Bull tanks on top of the Shivas. They don't like the intimate relationship they're having right now, but they will die together. How romantic. Bulls coming in again. The field now strewn with wreckage. I don't know if there's anyone rezzing or reclaiming. Not too many units out here, but all of them are expensive. Besides the ones that clearly aren't, but mostly expensive. Looks like the pulsar is still intact, but it didn't help enough to stop some of these Shivas. As MightySheep continues to punch forward. The Shiva rockets landing on the Starlights. So far, a clear advantage for Teddy. As he moves forward, and back at home, he is scaling quite dramatically. He has the base at his side, so I don't know where the commander is. But the Shivas are now marching up. The Bulls on the high ground. Gonna try to be a last line of defense before most of the economy, and especially the production. You can see the reactors on the horizon. Meanwhile, he's just queuing up advanced fusion reactors, 3,000 energy apiece. The hardest building, or the most complicated and long-winded building in the game. The most expensive thing is the Juggernaut unit, arguably, but the advanced fusion reactors, the fact he's queuing them up tells you how much his economy is scaled. Teddy, on the other hand, has not built any advanced fusion reactors. It's not the end of the world yet. It really comes down to production capabilities. But at some point, the sheer economic scaling. So the way you convert is advanced energy converters. It converts all the energy past this gray bar into metal if you have enough energy converters. So that's it. You gain more energy, you gain more metal past the amount of metal you're able to grab from the map. It's not efficient compared to getting more metal extractors, but at some point, you've got all the metal extractors. And that is how the exponential scaling works. You use that metal to build more advanced fusion reactors, to get more energy, to convert into more metal, to build more advanced fusion reactors, to build even more units, to completely obliterate and embarrass your opponent in the grand finals of the Beyond All Reason 1v1 tournament. And that's the whole build. But it's not over yet. Teddy still has quite an armored force here, though it does seem like much ground has been gained back by MightySheep. A handful of turrets are not going to be enough to stop the swarm of Shivas and Karganaths. The Starlights and Bulls are starting to hold the line with some welder bots. The lightning tanks here. Well, they're not tanks, but they're essentially a frontline brawler that deals with the swarms of units a lot better with the chain lightning. And the counter-strike. That pulsar struggling for energy to fire. Some of the Karganaths working along the left side. The right flank has been mostly cleared up, but a direct attack down the center. Oh god, they're on the mountain. The Starlights, of course, can hit them with that laser cannon. Or tachyon, whatever. The big shooty laser. Hard to miss. Believe it or not, Cargonists do not move faster than light. Oh, he's that's one way to get tier 3 units. Not the most, efficient, but he is resurrecting some of the tier 3 from his opponent. Still struggling to deal with the Shivas on the right flank. A swarm of grunts is added in as well. The Bull's trying to clear up the center of the field. Missiles landing. Constructors knocked out of the sky. Some of the tier 1 spam drawing the shots as the Shivas work their way forward. More Junos. Here come the grunts, drawing the armor line in the center of the field. Is there enough to stop MightySheep as he marches across? On the back line, some of the Cargonists have turned their coat. The Shivas moving over to the right. Blasting their way through. There's not enough defense. Unloading the rockets onto the Bulls. It does look like just enough to hold the line. The welders mixed in helped out a lot with the spam. Over. It's not looking as good. Over on the right side here. But the Pulsar maybe could have been a little better positioned. Right now, constantly getting poked and prodded along both flanks is Teddy. But holding strong in the center. He's now down almost double energy and nearly double metal production as that scaling is kicking in. So many advanced fusion reactors and a summoning circle of constructors here. He is using, so air constructors don't have collision. So he's adding their... It's happening! A juggernaut is in production. I'm not gonna spoil it. It's called a juggernaut. Which has stalled out the production of all other units since it costs as much as like 20 of them combined. But in many cases, it might be well worth it. The sheer amount of units on the field. MightySheep is almost halfway to the unit cap of 2,000. He's at 948. His opponent is at only 340. It doesn't matter what those units are. I think that tells the story right now. The swarms of grunts matched by the Jaguars, the gunships. There's just so many units. The armor getting beaten down on the field. The flanking damage kicking in. He's trying to use some of the air, but the fighters swarm over. And while they might get taken out themselves, they cleared out the gunships for now. Some of the grunts moving back. The Juggernaut is at 60%. Teddy. Does he even have one? He's just building regular fusions. Regular old normie fusions, not deluxe premium advanced fusions. As he's struggling. Meanwhile, MightySheep is going to be up to 20,000 energy. More energy than the rest of the games in this series combined at once. Per second. So far, Teddy has been more efficient, but MightySheep has gained 100,000 more metal and almost double the energy now. Another armored sweep. The tanks blasting through the grunts. The Shiva's standing up to a little more punishment. It looks like the attack on the right flank has been mostly slowed down. The ticks are trying to draw fire, just distracting the shots and overwhelming the defenses of the Pulsar on the left flank. Some rattlesnakes, tier 3 finally online, but the experimental gantry for the Armada. The Rattlesnake's quite a good choice against many of these medium units. A rapid rate of fire, pretty decent speed, will help to clear out all these ticks without costing us a ridiculous amount in static defense. But he's here! The Juggernaut. $149,000 HP. More weapons than I care to read off right now. The speed, marginally faster than a turret. And while Teddy might feel like he's pushed back, he's gonna feel something else. Let's go to the Teddy. Oh, Atomic Bomber just wiped out a whole bunch of production, though. The Juggernaut is here, but it is just one unit. Atomic Bombers wipe out a bunch of the factory construction turrets and the factories themselves. Instead of spending he's building a second oh my god, says Teddy. But in spectator chat, or in allies chat, which is for spectators. This essentially never happens in an actual game. Rarely does a game get to the point where it still could go potentially either way and a Juggernaut hits the field, which will likely turn the tide. But if he loses it, it can be resurrected for the opposite side, which we've seen plenty of. So, Teddy. 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 Do you have what it takes? The Juggernaut joined by a bunch of units who are trying to get in its way. Teddy trying to put whatever he can on the lines while also working on the right flank. He may be able to punch through there. They're just lines of anti-air turrets. You don't have to see the Juggernaut to know it's on the field. Let's go to the Teddy cam. He doesn't see it, but that laser, that's the only unit that has that sound in the game. You learn very quickly what it means. It means the game has changed, and probably not in a good way. Ooh. Well, the attack actually breaks through the right. There wasn't much there. You could tell the lines of units headed over. MightySheep has a lot less units ever since he lost his factory production here. He's rebuilding some of it. The Juggernaut is actually marching slowly. The Rattlesnakes may be able to surround. The Juggernaut is clearly vulnerable to flank damage. It can be surrounded. It can be killed. It can be beaten. And remember, if he finds the commander. Also, almost every single unit in the game can outrun it, so. Teddy is throwing everything every which way. Over to the top right. The Rattlesnakes are punching through the center. The Juggernaut trying to chase them. The attack is petering out here. Though still enough tanks. The Rattlesnakes breaking through. The left flank is holding. But a counter strike. The Rattlesnakes, where's the commander? The Rattlesnake's fully capable of taking down the commander. The Juggernaut actually holding. Does he have another one? No, he's building just Shivas for now. Those aren't Rattlesnakes, those are Razorbacks. I'm sure somebody was yelling at me in chat. Honestly, Rattlesnake would fit them better. They have like a rattly noise to them. All right, I don't, is Rattlesnake another unit? Either way, Rattlesnake would have fit just fine. It's a fitting name. Oh, where's Teddy's commander? Okay. Building it. Well, I don't know, Teddy. I don't know about this idea. Building his, what might very well be his first advanced fusion with essentially no defenses in the corner. The Juggernaut came back. A whole bunch of Wasp gunships here. But the Juggernaut has dealt with the counter. MightySheep now has a 20,000 energy advantage. The ticks overrunning the field. We're gonna go to Teddy's view. Not his camera, but... Where is he? You can actually hear him if you listen. He doesn't know exactly. There are the Shivas. He's adding more Annihilators. A whole lot of units coming up. But nothing he can't deal with. A few grunts. A lot of Shivas. Get you a little more dramatic. Able to target some of them with radar profiles. But so far, the Shivas have been driven back. So far, Teddy will hold. A Juno lands. He's building atomic bombers. There's still a big question mark on the field. I'm not sure. The atomic bombers are headed over, looking for something. They see the Juggernaut. But the bombers are hitting the Shivas. The Juggernaut actually doesn't have incredible anti-air. So, the laser obviously does great damage to whatever it hits, but it isn't an anti-air platform. Then again, everything else and all those fighter aircraft are pretty good at their jobs. So, MightySheep now has double the income, almost triple the energy. The Juggernaut still marching. He's rebuilt a lot of that Tier 1 production. MightySheep fired a nuke. It was intercepted. He tried a shot. So there was anti-nuke over there. Thankfully. The Juggernaut has finally touched grass. And Teddy's not going to be hyped about it. The Juggernaut has it in its sights. A lot of the economy. A lot of the reactors. Any remaining production. One of the reactors may go up. The bombers, EMP! Desperate. EMP bombers will slow things down. The Razorbacks doing what they can. Juggernaut targeting some of the buildings, some of the infrastructure. EMP bombers, desperate. But the Juggernaut will not be stopped. I don't think it's vulnerable to EMP, and even if it is, it takes far too much. The Shivas may be taken down. There might not be an opportunity for a massive chain reaction. But even when it dies, the Juggernaut is a threat. It unleashes something. Oh, it's self-destructing! 5, 4, 3, 2, 1! Oh, no! And with it, Oh! The self-destruct was significantly more than the outright damage. And if it self-destructs, it leaves nothing to resurrect. You cannot revive it. All that's left is the crater. And with it, oh, he took the anti-nuke out. At least for, oh, he didn't actually, but that wasn't in range. Nuke's landing. A desperate counterattack. The left flank is holding, but for how long? It seems all but inevitable in this, by far, the most dramatic high-economy game of Beyond All Reason. Another juggernaut. And another juggernaut. He's building 2 at a time. MightySheep is at 50,000 energy. Nearly 1,000 metal a second. He can build a juggernaut every 30 seconds at that rate. Assuming he has the production capability, which I'm gonna go ahead and give him credit for. I will say, it wasn't over, I think, until that juggernaut touched grass. Until that juggernaut reached this side of the map, mostly uncontested. I think Teddy still had a dream. But I think once it had made it that far, intact, the dream died. And so did Teddy. Yes, he's still here, the commander, on his hill. But while he might not have vision of it, we can see across the map yet another juggernaut in production. Added to the list. Yeah, MightySheep will be earning his crown. This is the original soundtrack, I might add. Which... the Razorbacks try to strike back. We'll deal with the Shivas for now. It might be. I don't blame Teddy. He knows at this point, I'm sure. But come on, you never get a game like this. Even in team games, sometimes you don't get this far. Even in 8 versus 8, you'd be hard-pressed to see this level of economy. This game is epic, says Teddy, acting like a Bronze League hero, but well-deserved. Commenting on how sick the game is. I'll let him have that one. I approve. My god. Sheep lagging the game by just queuing up move commands. Multiple juggernauts on the field. Give us the nukes. He's got one banked up. There's still the dream of sniping the commander, but he hasn't made any real attempts at it. Oh, will it be the relatively lowly Shivas who actually sneak up on Teddy here? Over in the corner. Multiple juggernauts in the center of the map. The Razorbacks try to close in. Juggernaut's lighting them up with that massive laser. Oh, Teddy. Teddy cloaked. MightySheep has 69,000 energy. Teddy, per second, that is. Oh no. Oh no! Teddy, fire the gun! Teddy, fire! He holds for now. Oh god. Oh no, 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 no! No! Oh, okay, well. The missile that was coming out as he degunned it actually cancels the advanced fusion reactor, but until it's finished, it isn't a massive explosive threat. Here comes the entire neighborhood. And then some. There's 4 or 5 juggernauts on the field. MightySheep I don't even want to know. Did he stop building? Oh, he could have stopped at 69,000 energy, but no, more! He's got 5-6 Juno launchers. His base looking... This is the reason this game sometimes gets auto-flagged by YouTube as Factorio, by the way. Because you guys gotta get to the devs. Gotta get YouTube to recognize it at least. I know Twitch does, but I don't know if there's a process for you to... Anyway. The amount of... Also, that's not even all of his advanced fusion reactors. There's a bunch more over here. All those construction turrets. I hear a... He's got a volley of plasma cannons, which I don't think I've ever seen in 1v1 either. Oh, but the grunts. The grunts. The grunts are the ones who might do it. Almost accidentally taking it out. But at the end of the day, it's still... Sheep is perma-cloaked, which costs 100 energy when standing still. A small price to pay for safety. There is still the tiny, infinitesimal dream that somehow a unit slips by, past half a dozen juggernauts, past an entire mountain of plasma cannons, past infinite grunts and fighter aircraft, that somehow, some way, MightySheep falls on his self-destruct button and accidentally blows up his own commander. There's a dream. G, he calls it. Sheep calls in the bombers. Teddy, with his crown earned in previous tournaments, has it ripped from his head. And with it, MightySheep takes the victory. The self-destruct. He goes down before anyone can take it from him. But time for some statistician level graphs. Your champion of the Beyond All Reason 1v1 tournament is MightySheep in 5 games. The bombers already had a bombing run queued up. You can hear it in the background. And they just keep... Alright, I don't... Jeez. I can't hear myself think. Oh my god, I can... Okay, now I can't hear it. Turn down the TV! I'm trying to talk about the stats. Or I guess you could pause, but... well. How about the statistics? $57 million energy. Wow. Well, even then, still a hard-fought tournament. Earning, well, one, I believe MightySheep gets a crown now. You get a crown on your commander if you win a tournament. With MightySheep, I don't see a crown. He's partying, as well he should, but that should be changed soon. First person view of the jug. I don't trust it, but... So, hopefully this was a demonstration. Thank you to the players. Past a certain point, clearly just enjoying the spectacle. Because almost no games make it to this auspicious level. But, there you go. Remember to use that promo code of liking and subscribing to check out Beyond All Reason for free. And hopefully you enjoy. Thank you to all the volunteer developers, to the players putting everything on. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I made your day a little bit better. Good luck, have fun. I'll see you next time. Stay chill. Stay unreasonable. We'll work with it. Well, I don't know about that. That's too much. That's too much. Cut. Edit that out.